Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the webinar. Welcome all of you and thank you so much for joining taking out your time for this webinar. So this is the third webinar from this series where we will be talking about places of API optimization, Google Cloud Billing Console, and terms of service. Obviously, seems like pretty simple topics, but to be honest, these things play a major role when it comes to managing your entire Google Maps platform. We will help you understand how you can go ahead and take care about it. Before we go ahead, we will give you a quick recap in terms of what we have covered in the previous webinar. So here we can see the agenda of this series. All right. So in the first webinar, we talked about what are the changes that are happening in this new model, how Google Maps actually started with keyless depreciation, how keyless usage is no longer valid. What are the changes that are happening in the billing model? How individual API consumption-based billing will be done, and how will you be charged? What are the changes in individual API implementation mechanism, and how you can, basically help you understand what are the changes and what is going to be the impact of those changes. Very high level we covered in that webinar. In the next webinar, we talked about how will you be charged, what are the tiers, what are the changes which has happened in terms of pricing. In the Places API, there are certain changes which has happened. We've covered that. We've talked about Places pricing as well. We talked about how you can optimize your maps and routes API. In this webinar, we are going to talk about how you can optimize your Places API, one of the most favorite API, any application or any website. We talk about e-commerce or travel website. We use Uber, Ola, and there are many more. You type, let's say DEL, and it gives you 10 different options. So many more options which you see with immense data of Google Maps. All right, so we will talk about how you can optimize that Places API. We will talk about how you can monitor your usage, how you can take care of everything using Billing Console. It gives you a lot of information which a lot of people are not aware of, and how to make best use of that. We will talk about that. And very important part, terms of service. So obviously, Google doesn't like, when we are not compliant in the usage of Google Maps, and people have lost their, Google Maps license as well, by not being compliant with those terms of service. So we will help you understand, what are the changes with this new model, and how, how you can make sure that you are compliant. So we will start with our webinar today with optimization of Places API. I have Jatin with me, who is a part of our pre-sales team. Handing over to Jatin to take ahead the discussion. But before I move on, this webinar will be recorded. We will be sharing the presentation of this webinar by the end of the webinar. If you have any questions, please keep typing it in the chat window. We will be addressing it by the end of the webinar. If you have not seen our previous webinar, just let us know. We will share our email address with you by the end of the webinar, and email it to us. Email us, and we will share recording and presentation of this webinar. All right. Thank you for your time, and handing over to you, Jatin, now.
Thank you, Neha. So let's talk about how we can optimize usage of Places API. So just to start with, I covered this earlier. The place details data is going to be divided into three categories: basic, contact, and atmosphere. So these are the three categories for places details data. So when we talk of basic category, it covers place ID, title, lat long, address, maps URL, about all these data attributes about a point of interest. Now, if we talk about contact bucket or contact category, it includes the website URL, phone number, and the operational hours, closing hours, opening hours of a point of interest. And then if we talk about atmosphere data, it covers pricing level and the rating. Rating refers to reviews given by users, reviews which are available in Google's database for a point of interest. So all these three buckets make up place details data attributes. Now, when we talk of different implementation mechanisms for Places API, which are available in the premium plan as well as under pay-as-you-go model. So if we talk about Place ID, so this was available in premium plan as well, and it is available under pay-as-you-go model as well. I can use Place ID in a place details call to get data about a certain POI. Every point of interest in Google's database is uniquely referred by a place ID. So I can use place ID as an input in the place details call to know the data about the point of interest available in the database of Google Maps. So I can get basic, contact, and atmosphere, all the three buckets with the usage of place ID as an input. But by default, place ID covers only in the basic have contact and atmosphere data buckets. I need to provide the attributes uh, from these data buckets in the place details call. So there is no change in the implementation mechanism under pay-as-you-go model. It remains so as it was in the premium plan. Now, if we talk about text search, so text search tells me it's like, let me take an example. I want to search for, let's say, pizza in New Delhi. So this is an example of text search. I get a lot of in the response of text search. I get a lot of records about pizza outlets which are there in New Delhi. And then I can surf through it and get to know the type of restaurant which I'm looking for, and various data buckets are available. In pay as you go model, I can make use of find place by text service. It's a new implementation mechanism. It's a new service. The difference is in text search, I get multiple, in a response, I get multiple records. When I say pizza in New Delhi, I get multiple records. In find place by text, I only get one single record. Of course, yes, there is a difference in the pricing of these two implementation mechanisms. But I should be careful enough when you talk of optimization of places API. I should be careful enough. I should know the intricacies of find place by text. What are the differences, just to make sure I can leverage this feature and make sure my costing comes down. So difference is I get only one result in the output of find place by text. It's an array consisting of single record. Now, if we talk about nearby search remains as it is, as it was in premium plan. Nearby search is, let's say I want to know pizza in New Delhi in, let's say 200 meters of radius from my current location. Let's say it could be like pizza in let's say Udyog Vihar Gurgaon, or let's say pizza in Pitampura, and then I can also attribute certain radius within which I need Google to search the results for me, the pizza for me. So this is nearby search. And then when we talk of autocomplete with character and autocomplete with session ID mechanisms, autocomplete with session ID is a new mechanism in Places API methodology. So difference between these two mechanisms is with autocomplete with character, I get charged for the number of characters which I'm typing. But autocomplete with session ID, I get unlimited number of characters. I'll take an example here. If I talk about, let's say, any food delivery app, let's say I am trying to book a cab. Let's say, if I talk about food delivery, if I'm trying to order something through Zomato, I will start typing, my location where the food needs to be delivered. I'll start typing, let's say, Sector 86, Gurgaon. Now, what will happen is I, as a user, have a widget wherein I can type the characters. So, under autocomplete with character, I get charged for the number of characters I'm typing. Now, supposedly, when I say sector food needs to be delivered in sector 86 Gurgaon, now if I happen to change my mind and I want the food to be delivered to, let's say, Udyog Vihar, Gurgaon, instead of sector 86, so I will rub the address which I typed earlier, and that's where I can leverage the power of autocomplete with session ID, because autocomplete session ID gives me unlimited number of characters. Even a backspace, when I press backspaces for rubbing the first address, which was sector 86 Gurgaon, I get charged. And then when I start typing Udyog Vihar Gurgaon, I get charged for the number of characters. But with autocomplete with session ID, I have unlimited number of characters. And with autocomplete with session ID, basic data of place details all is freely available. Now let's talk about the pricing for different implementation mechanisms. So place ID, when I fire a place details call using place ID, I get charged $17 for per thousand calls, and that includes by default the basic data bucket. Now, if I talk about autocomplete with characters, it is $2.83 per thousand characters. Additionally, if I need basic data or contact data, basic and contact data, that is charged separately. The original searches which were there in premium plan, text search, nearby search, query autocomplete, those would be charged at the rate of $40 per thousand calls. Now, if I have the need to look at the pictures of a POI, I get charged $7 per thousand photos or pictures which I view. Now, this is the comparison between pricing for autocomplete with character and autocomplete with session ID mechanisms. So under pay-as-you-go model, I get charged $2.83 for 1,000 characters, which are typed, which means my implementation mechanism is based on the number of characters. Now, if I change my implementation mechanism to autocomplete with session ID, wherein I'm required to pass a session ID in the request, I get charged $17 per thousand calls, and the advantage is I get unlimited number of characters for each session, and then basic data bucket is also freely available with it. Now, imagine a scenario wherein, let's say, my single request with autocomplete with characters is there, and there I'm required, on an average 6 characters for, let's say it's an average number of characters I need for every session. So there, my thousand per thousand calls will cost me $16.98, because per thousand characters is 2.83, and for each and every search I'm utilizing 6 characters, I'm typing 6 characters. So 6 characters per thousand calls will be equal to $16.98. So in comparison, I have for every thousand, for all 1,000 calls, I will be charged at the rate of $17. And now let's again go back to autocomplete with character mechanism, and I need basic data to be available for me. Therein I will be charged at the rate of $17 again. So total costing with autocomplete with character mechanism is coming out to be $33.98. In comparison, with autocomplete with session ID, I'm only getting charged $17 because basic data is freely available with autocomplete with session ID mechanism. So that's how, that's the power of autocomplete with session ID. You get basic data freely available with autocomplete with session ID, and I also have unlimited number of characters available. So that's the advantage you can give to your users, to the enterprise users. Now let's talk about text search and find place by text. So costing for text search is $40 per thousand calls. It includes basic contact and atmosphere. I, I talked about an example wherein I'm searching for pizza in New Delhi. So that's a simple text search example. Now, if I talk about find place by text, which gives me only one record in the response, I get charged only $17, and that includes only the basic data. Now, imagine a scenario wherein, let's go back to the example of a pizza wherein I was trying to find pizza in New Delhi. So I would not be needing, contact and atmosphere bucket, data buckets when I start looking for pizza in New Delhi. I only need the location of the pizza, nearest pizza outlet around my location, or let's say the location of my choice, which I'm trying to search for. So that's where the only basic data bucket would be utilized. Now we have to do our due diligence, wherein we have to evaluate whether I need basic bucket only, or I need basic contact and atmosphere buckets as well, in addition to basic bucket. So if I need only the basic bucket, $17 for per thousand calls, that is good enough for me, and that's where I can save a lot of costing, lot of money. So let's do the comparison in detail with between text search and find place by text. So text search is going to cost me $40 per thousand calls. Find place by text is going to cost me $17 per thousand calls. Find place by text by default includes the basic data bucket. If I need, I will, those come by default with text search. So it is going to cost me $40. And supposedly, if I need the contact details about, or let's say the operational hours, which is the contact bucket from place details data. So 17 plus 3, if I talk about find place by text, is going to cost me only $20 per thousand calls. So that's a saving of $20 for thousand calls. And that's where I need to do the due diligence and evaluate. What is my use case all about? Is it sufficient for me if I go with find place by text? So that's an example of a place details call. A fields parameter, if you can see, which is where you can specify what all data buckets you need, and the place I have used place ID as an input for a POI, and the fields parameter wherein name, ratings, formatted phone number have been specified. So if I need only the fields from basic data, I can specify only the basic data bucket attributes. If I need contact and atmosphere, I can include more attributes to the fields parameter. Now let's talk about billing console. Once an enterprise, you know, tries to procure Google Maps license, and a setup has to be done by the reseller. Once the setup for Google Console has been done, when I say setup has been done, a project gets created for the enterprise, and that project is shared with the enterprise. So that's how the home screen of the project looks like. If you can see, there are various sections. One section is for the project info. It tells you about the project name, project ID, project number. Project number is something which is mapped in Google's database with the project name that you have, that has been created for the enterprise by the reseller. If you look in the on the right hand side in the middle, you have a section called billing. If you go to view detailed charges, you can see the pricing for the duration you want to view the billing for. I'll cover that in detail in the next couple of screens. That's the dashboard wherein you can see the number of calls for different APIs which you have made in last 30 days. You have the option of 30 days, 14 days, 7 days, and so on. And you can visualize, it tells you how has been the traffic traffic consumption been during this period. There have been certain periods where there has been a spike in the usage, and there have been certain periods where there has been no usage. So maybe you can use this data for analysis, why there has been a spike all of a sudden, or why there was no data consumption happening for last couple of days. That's the billing console. You can view the charges for your specific, let's say for the last month, I want to see what has been the total charge against my project. So I can view the charges here. If I want to have more details about charges, like let's say if I want to see the charges on the basis of SKUs, what has been my charge for places details SKU, what has been my charge for geocoding API, distance matrix API, all that is available over here. And I can also change, let's say I want to see the charges for certain specific dates, let's say, which is not for the last month, let's say 15 days from last month up till now, what has been the total charge. So I do have an option here. I can go to the dates column here, time range column here, and then I can specify custom date range wherein I can specify the start date and end date, and I can see the charges. I can also view, there can be instances wherein multiple projects can be created for an enterprise, and you want to visualize what have been the charges for different projects, let's say for last in the last month. So I can group the charges on the basis of projects as well. Now, how do I raise a support ticket to Google Team? So in premium plan, if I wanted to raise a support ticket, I would go to Google Support Portal. But the beauty of pay-as-you-go model is you can view the billing, you can view the charges, you can view the count of APIs, you can raise a support ticket all in one console, which is the Google Developer Console, Cloud Console rather. So if left, if you go, you need to go to Google Maps, and then you need to go to Support tab to raise a case to Google. And that's how you will provide all the details. Issue type, severity refers to the priority of the case. It's a P1, which is high priority case. You know, needs to be resolved by Google. You want Google to look into it on an urgent basis. Subject, all these details can be filled, and then you can have a response from Google team for the case you raise. Very important thing is, once we create the keys in the console, we should be restricting the keys. So there are different restrictions which can be applied to keys. So keys can be restricted on the basis of domains and IPs, which means, if I create a key, I want this key to be utilized only by certain IPs which belong to my organization, or certain domains which are my organization's domains. So I can restrict the keys on the basis of IPs, domains, Android apps, iOS apps. And then another restriction which I can apply is I can restrict the keys to be used only against certain APIs. Let's say the key which I've created, I want this key to be used only and only for geocoding and places API. So all these sort of restrictions, I can apply, and these are good to have. We should we should do our due diligence and make sure that yes, we are applying all the restrictions which we want to apply, and make sure there is even if the key is stolen by somebody, it is not utilized uh, in, illegally. Now let's talk about terms of service related to Google Maps. We all should have a good understanding of terms of service, and that's an actually a compliance matter when we talk of Google Maps. So customer may use map services in their in their own applications. So whether your use case is about asset tracking, whether it's an external application, internal application, Google permits use of Google Maps in your applications. Of course, there are certain obligations. There are some certain prerequisites, which I'll cover in next couple of slides. So once an enterprise procures Google Maps, what all is he provided with? So you get maps, routes and places, API services. We have discussed about this in detail all through in the webinar. Then you also have technical support from Google, which is available. Chat support is also available, and then you have technical support from resellers like Lepton. That's where you can raise your concern to us, and then we're there to answer you. We're there to address all your concerns before you actually go to Google. And then Google Maps gives you 99.9% SLA, 99.9% uptime. And if Google wants to deprecate any API or any feature, it will give support. It will give you prior information 12 months in advance for before it makes any changes or shuts down any feature or any API. Certain prerequisites which we all should be aware of. So customers should have Google account, a developer console access, and a project before making use of Google Maps. So as I mentioned, whenever any enterprise tries to procure Google Maps license, so reseller would create a project, and as part of the process, enterprise has to share Google account. It should be, when I say Google account, it should be Gmail ID or an enterprise account, which is a Google account. And this Google account is actually the owner of the project which a reseller creates. And then once the project is created, an email is sent to the enterprise that they can use this project, and you can start creating keys, and then you can start using Google Maps then on. We discussed about a couple of terms of service, and as a mandate, enterprises need to abide by terms of service of Google Maps. Rest all points, I think, can be covered later. We'll be sharing a copy of this presentation with you. And then there are certain restrictions on the use of Maps, Routes, and Places API. Scraping or illegal caching of Google Maps is not allowed as part of terms of service of Google Maps. No content creation from Google Maps content. You should not create a content similar to what Google Maps is providing by utilizing what is being offered by Google Maps. No recreating Google products or features. No use with non-Google Maps. This is very important. This refers to, let's say if I have an interface which is, if I have a Maps interface from a different vendor, service provider, which is not Google. And in that scenario, I cannot utilize content of Google Maps. Let's say if I want a directions API from Google Maps, but the interface belongs to any other map service provider. So this is something which is not allowed. No circumventing of fees, no use in prohibited territories. There are certain obligations related to political boundaries. That can be all details are available with Google over Google Maps website. No use in embedded vehicle systems. No use for high risk activities, and no modifying search results integrity. So all these can be, I would suggest that we all have a good grip on all these points, and any questions that you have related to any terms of service or any other issues, you can get back to us. I think all this can be covered in the presentation itself, when the presentation copy is shared. And this is the URL which you can refer, talks about all the details for terms of service of Google Maps. And I would suggest you go through it, and do let me know if there are any questions. So that was it for the webinar today. I would love to have questions related to pay-as-you-go model or the topics which we have covered today. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jatin. We've got a question from Naveen. Do we need to pay leptin as per the amount displayed in Google Billing Console, or is there any extra charges included by leptin? So, Jatin will answer that.
Naveen, thanks for bringing this up. So whatever charges you get to see in the billing console, an invoice gets generated for it, and you are required to pay only that much amount as part of the consumption that you made for Google Maps.
Another question is by Naveen. Can we restrict the maximum limit of charges per month per key?
Okay. So, I mean, you can set alerts related to billing. Let's say, it can, you want to set an alert that yes, if the charges within a month happen to reach, let's say $200, $500, an alert should be given to you. So that is possible, and you will get alert over email, but it will not stop the services. Let's say once that limit is breached, you had set a limit of $500 per month. If the charges reach $500, it will not stop. Google doesn't put a hard stop.
All right. So another question is this service to be taken monthly with leptin, or we can pick package for 6 months or any certain duration? This is by Trisha.
Okay, so you pay for the monthly charges that you happen to accrue. Uh, you pay at the end of the month. But then there are certain customers. I covered this point in the earlier webinar. There are certain customers who are not comfortable making monthly payments, and as part of the planning, they have to set aside a budget for certain applications. So if you want to pay upfront, or let's say you want to give a PO upfront, that is possible. For this, my sales team would get in touch with you, and they can give more details. But then there is a provision. Yes, you can make upfront payment. Yeah, but then whatever charges would be accrued at the end of the month, or let's say whatever is the duration of the commitment, whatever is the difference, that can be seen. So I would suggest, my sales team would get in touch. If you have more details, my sales team will give you more details about this.
So there is another question by Satish. Well, it seems that you are an existing customer, Satish. You can reach out to your relationship manager, or you can drop an email on the email address given on the screen. Will help you get those issues resolved, or will help you get the process started. All right. Okay, we have more questions coming in. We have a question by Pujan Priya. Can we use multiple key in single projects?
Yes, Pojan, you can use multiple keys in a single project. Let's say if I talk about Uber or Ola application. So there is one interface which is with the customer. There is one interface which is with the drivers. There is one interface at the backend. So for these three interfaces, you can have different keys just to monitor, what is the amount of usage against a particular key.
All right. So the next question is by Naveen. Is the support ticket created by from Google Console handled by Google or by Leptin?
So once a support ticket is created, it goes to support team of Google Maps. Before creating the ticket, if you have, if you want to discuss the issue with us, we are more than happy to help you. We are welcome. We are very eager to help you out rather. So you can discuss the issue with us, and if it doesn't get solved, if there is a need to go to Google support team, yes, you can raise a ticket.
All right. So the next question by Rohit Agarwal. How to know the number of APIs called through the users of our application? Can we track this through Google Analytics, or need to take it by our own?
There is no such mechanism available for tracking the amount of usage happening by a particular user. For this, maybe you need to have your own logic. You need to build your own mechanism. You can check the usage against a particular key, but user specific number of calls cannot be traced.
All right. So we can take some more questions. Some of the questions seems to be, very specific use cases, your own specific use case. So for that, we have mentioned that, we'll arrange a call back. Uh, if you have any specific use case, you can just mention that in the chat window. We'll give you a call back to discuss that separately. All right, we are waiting for more questions. Let us know, as we will be ending the webinar at by 3:40. So meanwhile, I do want to highlight this. Obviously, this change is happening right now, and there are a lot of hiccups that people have faced in the past, and Captain is definitely there to support you with that change. No matter you're already an existing customer of Google Maps, or you want to start using Google Maps now, we can help you with that process. We have implemented in other countries. We have an experience, with this transition. We are one of the oldest and largest Google Maps partner in India. This transition will get implemented by so Google is going to make an announcement by mid-August, and it will get implemented by early October. Right, it's going to get implemented by early October, and Google will make an official announcement by mid-August. So you will get to know. So it's best now is actually the time to get started on this. And if you have any question, you can always reach out to us. All right. So I believe we are sorted. We are receiving queries, but it seems they're very specific use cases, and we will be reaching out to those people separately. So we'll be on mute and we'll be waiting for your questions. If you have any question, just drop us a note. We'll be waiting for another 2 minutes. Subesh, your question is, how can we access the videos again due to some network issues? You could not join. We'll be uploading these videos on YouTube as well. We'll be sending you an email with a recording of this webinar and previous webinar in case you've missed. Yeah, you can watch it. That's not a problem. So there is a question by Naveen. Is there any chances of fake hit from internet? How do we mitigate it? So Jatin.
See, this is why I asked. I laid a lot of emphasis on restricting your keys against certain domains and certain IPs. If you restrict your keys against your IPs and domains, nobody else, even if somebody gets to know your key, nobody it cannot be utilized outside your domain. So that's how you can prevent fake hits. Yeah.
All right, so one more question by Rohit. Which API to use to track the path of user? We are about to build an application to track our marketing people while they're. So I think Rohit, you can just drop us an email, and the number on the screen is mine. After the webinar, you can give me a call, and we can discuss this. So it's very specific use case. Looking at. All right, I think we are done. So I hope this webinar series has helped you out. Has brought you some clarity in terms of how all those changes needs to be implemented. If you further need any support, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being an amazing audience and being with us throughout all three webinars. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead.